If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe to the channel and leave a like to be part of the community. Now let's get started.
He shouldn't have been there. Cale had been crossing the northern plains for 3 days without a destination, his golden fur covered in dust, and his gaze empty, like someone who has already lost everything. He was a lion without a pride, without a territory, just a large body moving through the world because his heart stubbornly insisted on beating. It was the smell that stopped him. It wasn't the scent of prey, nor of danger. It was something heavier, more urgent, a smell he recognized deep within himself, the smell of death arriving slowly. He followed the trail to a ravine covered in dry bushes, and there she was, a she-wolf, large, her dark gray, fur stained with blood, lying on her side on the cold ground. A metal trap had clamped onto her paw with silent cruelty, the kind of object no animal of the fields builds, only those who walk upright and believe the world belongs to them. Cale stood still for a long moment. Wolves and lions do not approach each other. That was a rule as old as the wind. But there was something in her eyes that broke any logic he tried to use. She was not afraid of him. She was waiting for him. The she-wolf's eyes, amber, deep, already half-faded, locked onto his with unsettling clarity. She did not growl. She did not retreat. She only breathed with difficulty, and then, with an effort that seemed to cost everything she had left, slightly turned her head. Cale followed her gaze. Behind a rock, huddled against one another, 3 wolf pups slept, unaware that their world was about to collapse. Too small to understand, too big to survive alone. The she-wolf looked back at Cale, and in that silence, something passed between the two that no human language could properly translate. She was asking. Cale felt the weight of that request sink through him like a stone in deep water. He knew what it was to lose cubs. He knew what it was to be unable to protect those who depend on you. That pain had no species. It simply existed, the same in any heart that has ever loved. He took a step toward the pups. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments what you thought, and which city or country you are watching from. The she-wolf died before dawn. Cale was only a few steps away when her last breath left her. Not like a groan, but like a slow and inevitable relief. Her body relaxed. The amber eyes lost the last of their shine, and the silence of the ravine became heavier than anything he had ever carried alone in his entire life. He stood before her for a time he could not measure. It was not grief, exactly. It was recognition. The kind of pain you feel when you see in another being exactly what you yourself once were. Someone who loved too deeply to be able to leave without looking back one last time. The pups were still sleeping. Cale approached slowly, sniffing the air carefully. There were 3, 2 males and 1 female, as far as he could tell. They were only a few weeks old, their eyes still closed with that heavy innocence of those who have not yet learned to be afraid. Warm bodies, steady breathing, completely unaware that the only one who protected them was gone. He should leave. All the logic of the wild said so. Lions do not raise wolves. This is not weakness. It is simply the order of things. He already had enough suffering to carry. He did not need to seek more. But then one of the pups moved. The smallest of them, the one in the middle, squeezed between the other 2, turned its snout toward Cale and sniffed the air without waking. It was such a small, unconscious gesture that it should have meant nothing. But Cale felt something crack inside his chest. He knew that gesture. It was the gesture of one seeking warmth, of one who still believes someone will be there when they wake up. There was a question Cale had carried since the night he lost his own litter, a question he had never been able to answer. What would he have done differently if he had been given a second chance? Now, in some absurd and unlikely way, the world was giving him exactly that. He did not fully understand what he did next. He simply lay down beside the 3 pups, wrapping them in the warmth of his own body. Their scent was strange, the texture of their fur different. Everything about it went against what he was. And yet, for the first time in a long while, Cale did not feel alone. The days that followed were the strangest of Cale's entire life. He had never taken care of anything before. Not like that. Not with that constant responsibility, that attention that could not rest even when his body begged for it. Wolf pups need warmth every hour. They need nourishment he did not know how to provide. They need a presence that never disappears, that remains even when there is no obvious reason left to keep trying. Cale learned all of this the hard way. On the first day, the three woke up and realized the scent around them was not their mother's. The smallest one, the one who had sniffed the air the night before, opened his eyes and became completely still, processing. Then he let out a sound so thin, so fragile, that Cale had to steady himself not to step back. It was the cry of someone who understands, without words, that something has been lost. The other two followed, and for a long moment, the three pups cried together while Cale stood motionless, not knowing what to do, a grown lion, marked with battle scars none of them would ever know, completely paralyzed before three creatures that could fit in the palm of a hand. Then he did the only thing he knew. He stayed. He did not leave. He did not retreat. He simply lowered his body slowly to the ground, let the warmth of his fur meet theirs, and waited. With time, the cries began to fade. Feeding them was the greatest challenge. Cale hunted, brought back whatever he could, and tried to offer in ways the pups could accept. He failed many times, returned with nothing on cold nights, saw the three growing weaker, and felt a dull anger toward himself, toward his own inability to be what they needed. But he returned. He always returned. It was during this time that the personalities of the three began to emerge clearly. The larger of the males was impatient and curious, always the first to move, always testing the limits. The female observed everything with a calm attentiveness that seemed older than she was. And the smallest, the one in the middle, stayed close to Cale with a silent constancy no one had asked for, but that Cale began to expect. What none of the three knew was what Cale had promised the dying she-wolf in that ravine, and what that promise was beginning to cost. The pack arrived on a moonless night. Cale sensed them before he saw them, a tingling at the back of his neck, that primitive warning the body gives when something greater than you is approaching in absolute silence. The pups were sleeping against him. He remained completely still, breathing slowly, calculating every possibility with care. There were 6 adults, moving with that precise coordination that only exists among those who have spent years learning to move as a single body. The encounter Cale had feared since the first day had finally come. He rose carefully so as not to wake the three, positioning his body between them and the pack. It was not an attack stance. It was a barrier of someone who will not yield, but who does not want war either. The pack leader stopped a few meters away, a gray wolf of imposing size, with a horizontal scar crossing his muzzle. He looked at Cale, then he looked beyond him, where the 3 pups slept, and he became completely still. What happened next was the most unexpected thing Cale had ever witnessed. The gray wolf lowered his head, not in submission, in recognition, as if he were standing before something he had no words to name, but understood deeply.
I have my opinion on this story, but I want to know yours. Leave a comment telling us what you think, and don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this conversation in future videos. Where are you watching from? I want to see who lives the furthest away.
The others in the pack remained behind, neither advancing nor retreating. Cale did not understand what was happening. Only later, when the pups woke and the smallest one, the one who always stayed close, walked without fear toward the pack and was received with care, did something fall into place. The pack had lost their own pups weeks earlier in an ambush. They had not come to take. They had come because the howls of the young had called them, and because they recognized In Cale, someone who had stayed when he could have walked away. But there was something no one yet knew. The gray wolf with the scar across his muzzle had been at that ravine before. It was he who had tried to free the she-wolf from the trap, and failed. It was he who had retreated into the darkness when an unknown lion appeared. He had watched everything, and he had waited to see what Cale would do. What the promise made to the dying she-wolf was about to reveal would change the fate of the 3 pups, and of Cale, in a way none of them could have foreseen. Cale spent 3 days in silence after discovering the truth about the gray wolf. It was not anger. It was something harder to name. That feeling that the world had been larger than you could see, that there had been more people around a story than you imagined while you were inside it. The gray wolf was named Giraffe, and he had not left. In the days that followed, the integration happened gradually, full of negotiated silences and measured glances. The pups were the first to cross the invisible borders. Children never respect the maps adults draw. The larger of the males began playing with the young members of the pack before any agreement had been made. The female watched for 2 days before approaching, and when she did, she sat beside Drav with a calm that seemed to say she had decided to trust. And the smallest one, the middle one, the one who had always stayed close to Cale, was the last. Not because he was afraid, but because he kept looking at Cale before going, as if asking permission, as if he wanted to be sure that, by stepping into a new world, he was not abandoning the only world he had known. Cale lowered his head. The pup went. There had been a question Cale had carried from the beginning, what he had promised the she-wolf in that ravine. And the answer, he understood only in that moment, had never been just survival. Any animal can guarantee survival. The promise had been something else. It was belonging. It was delivering those 3 lives to a place where they could be fully what they were. And he had fulfilled it. Cale did not stay with the pack. It was not what he was, and pretending otherwise would be a gentle lie, but still a lie. What he did instead was different. He remained present. He appeared. He watched from a distance. And sometimes, on cold mornings, the smallest of the 3 would leave the pack, walk to where Cale was, and sit beside him for a while without any need for explanation. Some bonds do not need a name to be real. The she-wolf had asked that her children live. Cale went beyond that. He made sure they belonged. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments what you felt, and which city or country you were watching from.